We're back for another edition of the Coyote Coach's Corner. Glad to have you on the Coyote radio station and on the podcast. I'm Brent Baker, broadcasting from the Nan and Bob Kingsley building at Weatherford College. We'll get Johnny Emmons in here in just a few minutes and talk about that rodeo team. But first, it's my pleasure and honor to have Bob McKinley with us, athletic director, women's basketball coach. Coach, I remember interviewing you at in 1997 at the pizza place with you and Marco Cena. It's been a long time, but it's glad to have you back, and thanks for taking your time to do this. We appreciate it.
Anytime. It's just a pleasure to be involved with everything we have to do with Weatherford College.
So before we talk about basketball, man, what a year we've already had in athletics. You got a brand new volleyball team, guns a-blazing, great start. You've got rodeo already started. Let's talk about volleyball. How they got off to such a great start. How do you think that even happened for a team that's brand new like that?
Well, the thing is that, like, being brand new in JUCO is like every team every year. You just about replace and become a new team almost every year. So to me, it's not any really big surprise that our team's doing as well as they are, simply because we're on the same schedule pace as most all the other teams. And Kylie's done an awesome job recruiting. She got a really good group in, and I'd be really disappointed if they don't win it this year.
Well, I like hearing that. I got the regional tournament coming up first weekend of November. Rodeo's already going. We'll talk to Johnny about that here in a few minutes. And I'm sure it helped everybody when they won the national championship this past year in women's rodeo. That was quite a thrill.
Oh, it's awesome. When you look at just for you to be able to win a national championship, you sit back and look all the way back to the times that Mike Brown was here, taking teams to the nationals, and all the way through almost every year since I've been here for 40 years plus, we've had people go to the national rodeo championships, and we haven't had a national championship. So that just gives you an idea about how hard it is to win one of those.
Very difficult, and it's difficult to win at a lot of sports because of so much talent, and it seems like basketball, there is so much talent on every team that you face every year, and here you are in another year coaching women's basketball, the Lady Coyotes, back to the regional tournament last year. This year, you've already started your scrimmages. Talk about your team and your brand new 2022-23 roster.
It's kind of hard right now to describe what kind of team we maybe end up with when conference comes around. The thing that's most impressive that I've seen so far in the two scrimmages we've had, we had the one that's Shaylin Hoops scrimmage. It was in Mansfield, and there were 42 teams there. And then the one we had this last weekend, there was like 18 teams. So we've seen almost every team in our conference. And what I've seen is that every single team is better than what they were a year ago. And I mean, like, McLennan is much better. Grayson is maybe the best they've ever been, and they're fielding a team with 11 internationals.
Wow, 11.
Their whole squad is internationals, not a single U.S. on it, and 7 Africans. So, I mean, they've got an unbelievable group lined up for our conference season.
So there used to be a limit. There used to be a 4-player limit on internationals. I guess that's been lifted now?
Well, when we first started, there was a 2-player. Yeah. You could only have 2. Then they increased it to 3. And then there was some kind of discrimination deal that was brought up, and they just eliminated that rule. So there's no rule on how many you can have and where they can be from.
So the Lady Coyotes coming into the season, I know that you have some returners, but you've got some new ones that are really good. You got to see that in action last week at that showcase, and apparently things went pretty well against some teams that were, in the Final Four last year?
Right. We scrimmaged 2 teams that were in the Final Four, and then we scrimmaged another one this last weekend that was at the national tournament. We have 2 players back that are on one of the COVID years, which gives them a third year of eligibility. And both of those players are playing really well for us. So our new players, we're still kind of searching around to find out where we can kind of place them in our roster, but it looks like we can get help at 2 or 3 places.
Okay, if you had to have a starting 5 today, would you be able to name a starting 5 pretty easily, or is it still a little bit up in the air?
It's really kind of scary because we could name a starting 5, and I don't particularly like that. I'd like to have some that maybe could come in and surprise us a little bit, but I think our starting 5 would be pretty solid.
So you're looking at conference play, again, starting right after Christmas. I know that you like to schedule a pretty tough non-conference to get you ready, but some balance too. Not crazy, but teams like Howard you always play, and Paris and teams like that. How important to you is the non-conference to get you prepped up for conference play starting after Christmas?
Always. It's good to have some teams that you kind of think are on the same level as you are, and try to find some that you think are maybe going to be a little bit better. That way you have to compete pretty hard. We like to try to get our team to where they compete as a group instead of like as a bunch of individuals. And usually coming in, if you have a lot of new ones, it's difficult to get them to compete like that. Most young players coming in are just not used to competing really on a really high level like we want them to. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do right now is get ours to compete at a really high level.
Talking to Bob McKinley, longtime athletic director and head women's basketball coach. When I talk to people in the community and they come from pretty high-performing high schools, or maybe they're a fan, I don't think there's a misconception about the level of play when they come to a place like Weatherford College. It is so much higher of a level than high school. Can you address that? And do you find most people are either players or parents or whomever are surprised when they get to this level and see this is a very high level of college basketball?
I think the misconception is that when you say JUCO basketball, everybody's kind of like, oh, well, anybody can play there. And we get calls from players that are all district 2 or 3 years in a row. And those things really don't mean that you can play at the level you have to here. The players that we have and the players that we play against are high level, maybe even mid D1 type players that you're playing against every day when you go out to play a game.
Bob McKinley, basketball here for 45 years.
This is my 46th starting this year. So 45 years finished up last year, and I'm on 46 starting this year, and that's just here at Weatherford College. I've got 57 years coaching.
What a blessing. What a career you've had. What's the biggest difference from when you started at Weatherford College in the late 1970s to 2022 going in 2023? What jumps at you as a huge difference in either the style of play or the athletes you get or just athletics in general?
I think the biggest difference, in this from my perspective, is for the women, is that they're getting to the point to where they want to play more like the guys all the time, and it means it's a more. I'm just really a pretty old school, and I think that you should play for the love of the game and not just for the love of what it does for you. But, playing for you as an individual, well, we just try to play as a team and try to be, I guess a family concept is something that I've always been involved with as far as basketball is concerned, and I don't guess that'll ever change for me.
Love it. And you can see it on the court as well. Bob McKinley, really enjoyed talking to you. Let's do this again in a few weeks when you get into some regular season games and talk about how the Lady Coyotes are going. We'll have Chris come here talk about the men as well. Coach, thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Anytime. You're surely welcome.
All right, Bob McKinley, let's take a break, come back and talk to Johnny Emmons about rodeo. It's the Coyote Coach's Corner on the Coyote.